Hey, how's everyone doing? Hope everyone's doing safe during this crazy pandemic as always. Today, I'm going to kind of make a bit of like a playoff thing, courtesy of EA Sports NHL 21. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see the teams. I've tried to use my remote to make it a little bit clearer, but unfortunately, this is the best that I can do right now. So I will have a marker that I can use and point with when I decide to talk about the matchups of the potential um, of the potential matchups of the 2021 NHL playoffs. And as always, everyone knows I'm a huge Habs fan. I still have my away jersey and my toque. I know it's starting to feel more like summer, so the toque might be a little out of style. I might have to find myself like a ball cap or something. And I'm sure if anyone's out there, they'll be like, "Oh, here comes a Habs fan after three losses." Can't be very optimistic, and you're right. In my last video, I criticized the team. I said there's just not enough. It's inconsistency, and we've already changed the coaches several times during Bergevin's tenure as the GM, and we've tried trading players, we've acquired players, and I'm not going to lie, during the off season, I thought we made a lot of bold moves. Obviously, bringing in a bigger body with Josh Anderson, I thought, okay, this could be a little bit tougher, and this is the kind of guy we need because Gallagher's too small. And then bringing in Toffoli, I guarantee I've said this 100 times that if it wasn't for this pandemic, I guarantee he would have went elsewhere. But just because of this pandemic and how this money is very tight for all these teams, we got lucky. And obviously bringing in Joel Edmondson from the Carolina Hurricanes, that was a bit of a huge acquisition. He's a veteran guy. He's won the cup just 2 years ago with St. Louis, so he knows what it's like to have that mentality going into the playoffs. And I'm sure, and obviously having Jake Allen, who was also his teammate of the 2019 St. Louis Blues, he has experience too. So we'll see what happens. Haven't heard much word out of Price if he's going to be game ready, if he's going to play any games. There's only two games remaining, and they're both against the Oilers. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about the team. As I said, I just want to kind of make a little prediction or my little video of the playoffs and the teams that most likely will be playing each other. Now, there are a few matchups that are guaranteed as of now that are for sure happening. And obviously, the big question with a couple other ones are depending on the seeds. And I'm not entirely sure of if this is going to be a correct playoff picture when the playoffs do start, because normally we have teams from the East, teams from the West. They battle it out until there's obviously one of each standing. So I'm not sure how the playoff brackets are going to work. I did put the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights up there as they both have the most amount of points out of all four seeds. So I figured one versus one kind of deal, and then just went down from there. So the first matchup, which I guarantee, it's a guarantee is happening, and it's kind of an odd matchup. Any other year, this would never happen unless it was a Stanley Cup final, and I'm talking about the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Nashville Predators. That matchup is going to be intriguing. It's going to be interesting. Carolina basically won the season series, so I would not be surprised if this was like a 5 or 6 game thing. But Nashville does have the depth. They do have the veteran leadership that they've had for many years. They were a contender back in 2017. They made it to the second round in 2018 before they lost to the Winnipeg Jets. And then in 2019, they lost to the Dallas Stars, I do believe, in 6 games. And then last year, they had to go into the play-in round. Unfortunately, they fell short against the Arizona Coyotes. So they want to kind of have a bit of a redemption. They would like to have a bit of a redemption, I'm sure, and to try and get past the first round and try to make a bit of a run with the veteran players they have on their team. So only time will tell, but if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say Carolina's probably most likely to win that series. Now, the next one is very intriguing, has the Florida Panthers taking on their state rivals, Tampa Bay Lightning. First time in history these teams will be playing each other, and it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I got to say, it's going to kind of suck because Florida's had a really good season this year, and I'm sure there might be some fans out there that said, "Well, they only played like 60 games or just under 60 games, so maybe they wouldn't have been as good." But I mean, they deserve to be here, so congratulations on them. And for the Lightning, obviously they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. They would love nothing more than to try and make a repeat run at that. That series, I think, is going to be back and forth. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. I don't think it's going to be 5 games. I want to say this is going to be 6 or 7 games. And Even though Florida has the home ice advantage, I'm probably going to give the edge to the Lightning in this one. But now, with that being said, I can't guarantee that. I can't guarantee that Carolina and Tampa Bay will play in round 2 because, again, I'm not sure how the seeding is going to work. I mean, they should, but who knows? That would happen. I'm sorry. It's the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final that I'm a little confused about. So now getting into the North Division, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs and obviously my Habs. Most likely will be the first round matchup. Unless we go and lose the last 2 games and Calgary wins the remaining of their games or Vancouver wins the remaining of their games, there's just 3 different scenarios. It's either we're going to be we make it or we don't. 2 scenarios. Either we make it or we don't. And the Leafs had our number this season. I think they won the season series 6-1 or 7-1, whatever the case may be was. So they have the depth and the talent on their team this year to, I do believe, make a serious run. Whereas in the past, they'd always play Boston, or last year I think they had to do the play-in round against Columbus, and then Columbus beat them in a best-of-5. So I'm sure the Leafs are looking to hopefully get further than the first round for the first time since 2004. And as much as it pains me to say this, unless the Habs can get all their players back in their lineup and they can get on a groove and get on a roll, I think this might be a 5 or 6 game series, and I can see the Buds taking it. It pains me to say that because I love my Habs and I'd like to see them go on a run, but I just don't know about this year. Like I said, it's been too inconsistent. Coaching changes didn't really affect much. Price being hurt, players being hurt, including Gallagher and Weber, and Sherratt missed a good chunk of the season too. So, I mean, unless we can do a miracle run like we did in 2010 or 2014 and get to the conference final that way, it's looking like it's going to be a very short series. Now, another matchup that hasn't been played with these 2 teams, and obviously under regular circumstances, this would only happen in a conference final, but due to the COVID situation where Canadian teams only play each other, it has the Edmonton Oilers, and they will most likely be playing the Winnipeg Jets, unless the Jets lose the remaining of their games and the Habs bump them in the standings. But I'm going to say that that's most likely going to be the first round matchup. And for the Oilers, you got to think, finally, we made it to the big dance. Obviously, last year they were in second place, I do believe, just behind the Vegas Golden Knights, and unfortunately, they fell short because they had to play their way into the postseason. And unfortunately, the Blackhawks, I do believe, beat them in a 3-1 in their best-of-5 series. So even though they were hosting it last year, they unfortunately were not able to be part of the dance. So I'm sure they would love nothing more than to prove to the world and prove to the NHL that they belong here and they are going to be on a serious run. And I could see them, honestly. No disrespect to the Jets. They have a wonderful team. But I just think that the between McDavid and Draisaitl, it's a dangerous combination to have on the ice. And especially if you give them a power play, I'm going to say 90% of the time they're probably going to score on you because they're just so damn good. And McDavid is probably the fastest skater, so he could, like I said, I can see this series going to the Oilers if I had to make a prediction. But I'll give the Jets some credit. I think this might go 6. I mean, they could possibly push it 7 games, but I just think the Oilers would probably be on their way to the second round. So my second round prediction would have the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers. Getting onto this side of the screen, the Vegas Golden Knights, once again, they will most likely be the number 1 seed. But again, I'm not sure how the conference is or how they're going to work, who they would play after their second round. I'm not sure. But they will be playing in their 3rd consecutive, 2018, 2019, 4 consecutive seasons in the NHL and 4 consecutive playoff appearances. So they have a very good team. They're obviously a well-managed, good coach. And I mean, they were a Cinderella team back in 2018, but they've been contenders each and every season after that. Even though they got lost to the Sharks in round 1, they did make it to the conference finals last year and lost to the Dallas Stars, I do believe. And now here they are again. And the only difference is they're actually playing on their home ice rather than playing up north in Edmonton. So I'm not sure about the fan situation in the States. I know up here we still can't go to a live game. So I'm not sure if they're still allowing fans in the seats. But if they are, I'm sure that'd be huge motivation and a huge help for the Vegas Golden Knights as they hopefully can contend for a serious run once again for the Cup. The Blues, as I've said before, they were just 2 years removed from the Stanley Cup. Last year, they lost to the Vancouver Canucks in the first round. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I do believe they had the better record between Vegas and St. Louis. So I'm sure they would love nothing more than to show the world that, hey, last year was a bit of a hiccup. Yeah, we lost Pietrangelo, but we're still here and we made it without him. So maybe we can use the experience that we have and having Bennington being an absolute stud when it comes to being a goaltender and having the leadership and Ryan O'Reilly. I'm sure it can really help them. So, but if I had to make a bold prediction right now, if these two teams were to play each other, which I'm pretty sure they are, that the series will go to the Vegas Golden Knights. I just think they just have too much experience on that team, too much depth, and having a goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner having that combination, that's a pretty good combination for a Stanley Cup team. The next matchup will have the most likely Colorado Avalanche taking on the Minnesota Wild. And these two teams have met, I do believe, twice in the postseason. Once in 2003 and once in 2008. I do believe they've split those series between the two teams. And they've been kind of at each other's throats. I mean, since Minnesota came into the league, they were basically a thorn in the Avalanche's side. And they were in that same division because they had the same division as the rest of the Western Canadian teams, if I'm not mistaken, before they obviously did the realignment. And Minnesota, for the last couple of years, they've been kind of iffy. I do believe they missed the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, in back-to-back years. They did go into the qualifying round last year, but Vancouver, I do believe, took them out before they could make it into the actual playoff, if I'm not mistaken. But they got a good team. I haven't really followed either of these teams that greatly, so feel free to criticize and say, "Oh, well, sports guy talk doesn't really know what he's talking about." But I'm just trying to have fun and just go with it. But Colorado, they've been a contender for the last 3 seasons. There's no question. Even in 2019, when they just squeaked in, and I do believe they beat the Flames in the first round before, unfortunately, falling short to the Sharks in 7 games. They had a good team that year, and they had a good team last year. But Dallas, unfortunately, was able to squeak one out. I do believe in Game 7 of their conference semifinals last year. So they got the team, they got the depth, and they've been a wonderful team as far as I can tell from the highlights I've watched. Whatever it is, McKinnon is just a blessing in disguise, you could say. He's a wonderful athlete. I'm sure the Avalanche just love that he's on their team. If I had to make a prediction between these two teams, I'd say Colorado gets into the second round, and it most likely will be a Vegas and Colorado second round matchup if I had to predict. Now for down this way, the bottom 4 teams, Pittsburgh will most likely, unless Boston makes a push, Pittsburgh will most likely take on the New York Islanders, which will be a rematch from the 2019 playoffs, which the Pens unfortunately were swept in 4 straight games, and that was a huge thing because they had all their players basically there. It just couldn't click for some reason, and the Islanders, since they've been taken over by Barry Trotz, I do believe, in the 2018-2019 season, they've made the playoffs 3 consecutive years now. The first time, like I said, they beat the Penguins in 4 straight games before unfortunately falling to the Carolina Hurricanes in 4 games themselves. And then last year they made it to the second round of the playoffs, the conference finals. I know Philly. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. It was the conference finals because I think it was Philly. No, it was the. Oh my gosh. No, it was the second round of the playoffs that they lost because. Was it Philly and Tampa in the conference final, or was it Tampa and New York Islanders in the conference final? Either way, I'm going to get way off track. I spent way too much time thinking about this. They did fall short last year in the postseason, but they made a heck of a run. And I believe if they can continue the magic that they've had the last 3 seasons, I could see them possibly ousting the Penguins, although the Penguins, I'm sure, are on a revenge tour like you've never believed. Because, like I said, as in 2019, they lost 4 straight to the same team. And last year they had to play my team, and unfortunately they fell, I do believe, in 4 games to the Montreal Canadiens. So they want to be like, hey, we want to make one more real good run because Malkin and Crosby are definitely getting up there in age. And who knows how long this combo is going to be together, especially with players' salaries and with this whole COVID thing. I'm not sure if the teams financially can afford all these players anymore because they're losing money with no fans. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say I would give the edge to the Penguins. They just have the experience, and no disrespect to the Islanders. It's too bad this wasn't like a second round matchup because this would have been way better. It's just a shame one of these two teams will be out in the first round. But if I had to go with my gut and my instinct, I would say the Penguins take this series. I'd say in 6 or 7 games. I don't think it's going to be another sweep. And the last matchup, which most likely will happen, has the Washington Capitals taking on the Boston Bruins. Now, for a lot of fans, you probably think this is probably a dream matchup because you finally, these two teams have met in the postseason before. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time they met was in 2012 when Joel Ward, of all people, ended the dreams of the Bruins fans in their first round matchup. Because if I'm not mistaken, Boston won the cup the previous year, so I'm sure they were trying to go back to back, but unfortunately they fell short. And speaking of the Bruins, they've just been a contender for years and years. I mean, the fact that they've had Bergeron and they've had Bergeron and Marchand on the same team since basically the 2010 season. That's been a very good combination, and since they drafted David Pastrnak, that's just been the dream line of the NHL. It's just they're too unreal. They click so well, and they're just all around a terrific line. I'd say probably, if not one of the best lines, the best line in NHL. And it coming from a Habs fan, that's obviously says a lot. And as for the Washington Capitals, yes, they've been contenders, and the only time they ever won was in 2018. And 2019, I do believe, 2019 they lost to the Carolina Hurricanes in the first round in a 7-game series. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And the last year, I think the Islanders beat them in the first round of the postseason. So that ended their hopes of raising another cup. So I'm sure Washington, kind of like Pittsburgh, they've been ousted the last couple of years. They definitely want to try and get past the first round. And imagine what kind of a matchup it would be if we had Ovechkin and Crosby facing off in the second round. I do believe Washington probably will get past this because, like I said, with the players they have, they're not getting any younger. They want to try and make at least one more run of the cup because, like I said, with this whole global pandemic, teams don't have the same salary cap that they used to. They could just grab people out of everywhere. Unfortunately, this is the crazy world we live in. So with the core group that they have, they would love nothing more than to try and make a run. So I'm going to go with my gut and instinct again and say Washington and Pittsburgh will most likely meet in the second round. So just a quick little review. Carolina, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Edmonton, Vegas, Colorado, Pittsburgh, and Washington. Unless the seeds happen to change, I do believe those will be the teams. I do believe this will be the matchup for the 2021 postseason, and those are my teams that I predict will make it to the second round of the postseason. As always, if you happen to if you happen to stumble upon this video, please leave a like and a comment. I'd love to hear back from you, and subscribe if you haven't. And I do plan on making videos. I have a little bit of time off now of work, so I do plan on making a few more videos. As always, guys, take care.